Hello, welcome to Vikings Vintage, our weekly uh, Vikings history show where we talk Vikings history. Today, we are doing, since the season ended badly and we had a horrible season and we did a terrible season. So last week, we thought that we would make it a little bit better. So this week, we are doing the 1969, the only season where the Vikings have won a championship. So hopefully, by the end of this show, we do feel a little bit better than we did for this season.
Skull Vikings, let's win this game. Skull Vikings, honor your name. Go get that first down, then get a touchdown. Rock 'em, sock 'em, fight, 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 fight. Go Vikings, run out the score. You'll hear us yell for more. V-I-K-I-N-G-S. Skull Vikings, let's go.
So yeah, the championship season that we never got the trophy for.
Yeah, it's still sitting in Green Bay.
Yeah, which they like to. Well, they didn't give it to Baltimore either.
No, it was supposed to go to Baltimore the year before, and Baltimore didn't get it either. So, but we won it in '69. We were NFL champions. So,
And it is official because the NFL says that they are the champion that year.
yes.
So
Yeah.
it's not like, it wasn't Super Bowl, but gotta keep in mind they weren't merged yet as a league, so it was still the
No.
AFL versus the NFL. So
And at that time, when they put the Super Bowl together, it was the champion who won the Super Bowl wasn't called Super Bowl champions. They were called the champions of American football.
right.
They were called world champions.
They're
So
still called world champions today. That's where that comes from.
I think when they finally decided to go with the Super Bowl champion thing, I think that might have been the late 70s, early 80s, because I think Major League Baseball wanted the World Champions thing for the World Series. So, but they were
Kind of
for
funny
years
because
called,
America. So.
they were called World Champions of American
Yeah.
football. So,
Yeah, so of course Bud Grant was the coach.
Mhm. His third
they went-
year.
Yeah, they went 12-2 in the regular season. So in the preseason they lost once. So the AFL NFL teams played in the preseason. Looks like that was probably their cross league games. And the Vikings only lost once in preseason. Back then they played 6 preseason games. So
Yeah, there was they started when they agreed with the interleague play, they started with preseason in 67. And so by 70 they went full when the leagues merged. But yeah, we started playing AFL teams in preseason in 67 from 67, 68, and 69. So we were mostly playing AFL teams.
yeah, so Joe Cap was the quarterback in '69, not Tarkenton. I know a lot of people think Tarkenton went to 4 Super Bowls. They actually only went to 3.
No, if you know your history, you know that
Yeah.
Joe Cap took us to our first Super Bowl.
Yeah. So, yes, he did go to 3 Super Bowls, but the first one is the NFL champion. So Tarkenton is just like all the other Vikings that hasn't won the championship.
Right. Although, here's the funny part. The Vikings opened up the season in 69 against the Giants, against Fran, and lost. They lost by 1, 24-23.
And that was their only loss until the last game of the season.
Yep. Yeah, they lost. And Joe Cap didn't start that. He didn't play that game. It was Gary Quazzo that started and played at quarterback for that game. Cap started week 2 against the Colts, the defending NFL champions, and that's the game he put up 7 TD passes.
Yeah.
And they beat the Colts 52-14.
Which I still think is a Vikings record.
Still a Vikings record. Tommy Kramer came close with 6 in 86 against the Packers.
Yeah.
He came close. But yeah, that record still holds. I think that record still ties an NFL record. I don't think the NFL, it hasn't been broke yet.
Yeah. So Dave Osborne was the leading rusher.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he had 643 yards and 7 touchdowns.
Yep.
He also caught 22 passes for 238 yards and another touchdown. Then Gene Washington was in John Henderson with the two receivers.
Yeah, John Beasley was your tight end.
Yeah.
Um,
And of course, they had Grady Alderman and Tinkelhoff. All those guys were in the Pro Bowl that year.
Alderman, Jim Valone was your left guard. Tinkelhoff was your center. Milt Sunday was your right guard. Ron Yeary, who was just playing in his second year, became the starter at right tackle.
Yeah.
That was the offense.
Stop.
One thing that the Viking offense did that year was they put up a lot of points.
Yeah.
They really did. They put 52 up on the Colts in week 2.
So 24-23 was the week 1 loss.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, they didn't lose again until week 14.
Yep.
But they beat Baltimore 52-14.
Yep.
Then Packers 19-7. Then they shut out the Bears 31-0. Then they beat St. Louis Cardinals 27-10. And then the Lions 24-10, 31-14 against the Bears. They did 31-3 against the Browns. And then
51-3.
51-3, yeah, sorry. I was looking. Then they game against Green Bay. I wonder what that was like. I wonder if it was November, so it could have been weather. It was 9-7.
That game was played at Milwaukee County Stadium. Joe Cap split time with Gary Quazzo in that game because I think Cap might have got hurt or he was just ineffective. Neither offense was doing much of anything. The Vikings sealed it when Bobby Bryant got a game-sealing interception at the end.
And then they went back to their normal ways after that, 52-14 against the Steelers.
Yeah, Gary Quazzo.
Oh, that's weird. I wonder what the if any other 52-14. They had 2 scores of that, 2 games with that same score in the same season. I wonder if that's ever happened since 52-14.
Not that high.
And then they shut out the Detroit Lions 27-0.
That was Thanksgiving in the snowstorm.
Yeah. And they played in Tiger Stadium.
Yep.
And 20-13 next week against the Rams. The Rams, when they were playing the Rams, it was always a good game.
The Rams at that time had only lost 1 game. That was like a marquee matchup, and it was basically Roman Gabriel and that Rams offense against the Purple People Eaters.
Yeah.
And it was a dogfight that the Vikings won it, but it was a dogfight.
And then the next week was 10-7. And then they lost the last game of the year 3-10. I wonder if they already had everything clinched by that time.
That Atlanta game was meaningless. They already clinched the division. So to go in and that, but players didn't want to lose a game. Didn't matter.
Yeah.
But to go, and then it was raining and the weather was bad in Atlanta for that game. And the Falcons won it. Claude Humphrey picked up a strip sack and scored on a touchdown. That's what won it for him. I think Quazzo is the one that fumbled it. But yeah, it was a meaningless game.
Yeah, so it's the Giants in 69, which is kind of weird because they weren't that good in 69.
Giants weren't that good, period, in the 60s.
Yeah.
After Wyatt Tittle retired, which is one of the reasons Fran Tarkenton wanted to go to New York, is because he thought he could turn that Giant team around and take eyes off of Joe Namath with the Jets. That's how big his ego was.
They went 6-8.
Yeah, they were 6-8. They had what's his name? One of the key defenders for the Giants on that day was a guy by the name of Bob Lertzema, playing for the Giants. He was one of the big stalwarts for the Giants defense that day. And 2 years later, he was a Viking.
Yeah. Then they lost to the Lions. They were shut out by the Lions a week later. So everybody thinks that Pittsburgh's been good like forever since they've been a franchise. They really weren't good until Chuck Noll got there because they were 1-13 in '69.
Yeah, and I think that was Noel's first year. They were
Yeah,
terrible.
yeah.
They were
So it's
terrible.
not like this. People talk like this. Yeah, they have a championship pedigree, but not until Chuck Noll got there.
And Noel had to build that team, and
Yeah,
but his first year they were terrible. Second year they were no better. But
yeah,
his first year he drafted Joe Green,
right.
and his second year he drafted Terry Bradshaw, and then in '72 he drafts Franco Harris, and then in '74 he starts drafting all the other players. In '71 he drafted Jack Ham. '74 he drafted Jack when was Lambert drafted? I think '74. Mike Webster was '74. I think Stallworth was '74. Lynn Swan was '73 or '74. So, he built the team and he built it through the draft. But yeah, they were not. That '69 Steeler team was not good. Not at all.
And so the next week at the Met, um, that was a 52 to 14 win for Minnesota.
That was Joe Cap threw the 7 TD passes. Matter of fact, he left the game. I think he had a fractured finger. Joe Cap did. And he went back in. He'd already thrown 5 TD passes. He went back in and threw 2 more TD passes. So he has 7. But the defense was starting to gel too, big time. And next week, who they play? Green Bay?
They played Green Bay, and they was 19-7.
Okay. That game, it wasn't played at Met Stadium. It was played at the University of Minnesota Memorial Stadium. The Twins were in the baseball playoffs. So the Vikings had to move the game to Memorial Stadium, and that was against the Packers. And that was a game where the defense, the front four sacked Bart Starr 9 times. They sacked him 9 times, and they missed a shutout by like 5 seconds.
Yeah, they says that definitely scored on the last play, or not the last play, but pretty close to it.
Yeah, it was. They were dominated the whole game. The Packers were dominated the whole game. And I think a lot of people were kind of sensing that the tide was turning, that the Packers weren't the Packers of old with that game.
Yes. Yeah, so Bart Starr threw for only 128 yards in that game.
Okay.
Joe Cap threw for, was it 210, looks like? And then, but he also had rushing yards too. Bart Starr really didn't run, but Joe Cap ran.
Well, here's the funny. Bart did run, but it was running sideline to sideline to get away from the front four.
Right. Yeah, he only had 15 yards rushing. So
yeah, and but they hounded him all day. He just was. I think Carl Eller got a safety on Bart that game. He just came off the edge and just manhandled him. But yeah, that was played at Memorial Stadium because of the Twins playoff game.
That was against '69. That was against the Mets.
Yeah, that was the year the Mets won it. The American League Championship, I think, was the Twins and Orioles.
Right.
And I want to say the Orioles might have swept them. Billy Martin was the Twins manager.
Yeah, it was second time the Twins were in the first time since they moved to Minnesota. I think they were in the playoffs, but
no, it was the second because they went to the World Series in '65.
65. Oh yes, right. That's right. The Twins are 3-1 in World Series. They don't count for some reason. They don't count the 1929 championship that they won when they were the Washington Senators. But yeah. Sorry. Well, this is a history show. So. Yeah. So that Packers game, I think this is when the Packers, like you said, this is when the Packers started to decline. This is
They started the decline.
From 60, this is like from was it 69 to 91 when they got Brett Favre, the Packers were trash.
68 to 91.
Yeah, they were absolute trash.
Yeah, 68 to 91. They were, I mean, they won the division once, and that was 72.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And that's because they won it by because everybody else had something go wrong that season.
Yeah, they were not the same Packers, and it was
kind of like this year with the Lions winning. Like if Cousins doesn't get hurt, I don't think the Lions win this year. But but yeah. What's that? Oh, so I don't know what Yogi's doing.
Our new graphic.
Oh, so it's no. So that was the new name of the station, right?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I was wondering what that was. So,
Yep.
But yeah, so you can't.
Oh, welcome back, T-Bass. Yeah, you might as well. We're talking about the 69 season.
Which I'm sure you. Yeah, Bob. We just lost him.
Yeah, we've lost quite a few players from that team recently. Joe, Bud, Bill Brown's gone. Grady Alderman, Jim Valone passed away in 77. Mick Tinglehoff, Doug Davis, Paul Dixon, Carl Kasulki, Ed Shirachman, Ursel McBee, Wally Hilgenberg, Roy Winston, Fred Cox, all the coaches, Fred Zamberletti. There ain't too many left from that 69 team anymore. So
yeah, because we're starting to get that age where we start losing people, Tony.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's.
No, thanks, T.
All those guys are great guys. We need to appreciate. Yeah, that's what we wanted because when I first joined this and with this school media thing that's going on all these different channels, I brought it up to Yogi. I said, "Do you think Tony would want to do a history show? Because there's not one out there."
There's no one out there.
Yeah, and so when he said yes, I'm like, "Well, let's do it." So I think it was Yogi that came up with the name Vintage. So yeah, so that's pretty much what we wanted. We needed people to know the history of the team who don't know, who think it started at '98. I think it's all big Vikings fans that the Vikings did not start in 1998. They were a team before that. I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong. I appreciate Randy Moss and everything he did, but you have to know the whole history of the team. Like a lot of people, which is sad, a lot of people don't even know because they never won a Super Bowl. Don't even know that we have a championship.
Yeah, and it's like I tell people, if you ever get in an argument with somebody and you tell them you're a Viking fan, the first thing out of their mouths is, "Well, how many Super Bowl rings do you have?" You tell them 4.
Yeah, because losers get rings.
Because losers get rings. The Super Bowl
wear
is a ring. There are Viking fans that didn't even know that.
Yeah, but the players don't wear them now.
Oh, yes, they do.
Oh, do they?
Oh, God, yes.
I've never seen a.
Oh, my God. I saw Bob Lurtzema wears his. Gary Larson wears his. Brent McClanahan wears his. Chuck Foreman wears his. A lot of the old timers, you know what? They didn't get the job done, but they're proud of the fact that they got there. Because there's a lot of their contemporaries that, think about it, never even made the playoffs.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're proud of those rings. They are proud of them.
I guess if you won a Super Bowl and you made another one you lost, I guess you wouldn't wear the one where you lost, I guess.
Well, you have those guys that win it. It's front and center. And the rings have changed over the years. They were pretty subtle back in the day. They're not as gaudy as they are nowadays.
Yeah, they're ridiculously gaudy nowadays.
Yeah, they're ridiculously gaudy nowadays. They were pretty subtle back in the day.
But you could actually wear it, and people wouldn't actually oh my God, look at that thing. They're like, oh, they probably just think it's like a regular ring.
Yeah. And there's players, I mean, like Carl Eller, when he hit the skids, he pawned 3 of his rings.
That should never happen. Of course, back then though, they didn't make the player that they make now.
No, they didn't make the money they did.
They actually had off-season jobs. They had to go back
Yeah.
to work off-season jobs.
And Carl, as I said before, Carl owned a liquor store in North Minneapolis. Carl was also, a lot of people don't realize this, Carl was an actor.
He was part of that. Not the was he part of was he part of the Jim Brown, like the black actor thing back in the 60s and 70s?
Yeah, he was in him and a bunch of other players.
I can't remember the name of that. What that group.
They were in the Black Six. They were called the Black Six, and they were in a movie called the Black Six. It was him, Gene Washington from the Niners, Joe Green from the Steelers, Willie Lanier from the Chiefs, Lem Barney from the Lions, and Mercury Morris from the Dolphins, along with Carl. They were the Black Six. That was the movie, the Black Six. He was an actor. He had been in movies. Joe Cap was an actor. Matter of fact, before he even retired, I think he had shortly retired. The first movie he did, before he did The Longest Yard, was Climbing Angry Mountain. He was filming that movie during the Super Bowl.
The Adam Sandler Longest Yard or the Burt Reynolds Longest Yard?
The Burt Reynolds. Yep, the Burt Reynolds, the original one.
Yeah.
Yep, the original one. But yeah, I mean, like you said, the guys had to have other jobs.
Not nowadays.
No, nowadays, once they sign you, I mean, with the OTAs and all that, you're round the clock. You're basically on their payroll.
Yeah, because basically, I don't know how you guys in the chat know how professional contracts work. Whether it's NHL, NBA, MLB, or NFL, you only get paid from the start of the season, from the first game to the last game of the season. You don't get paid for preseason, and you don't get paid for postseason. I mean, you get a check from the league, but you don't get paid by the team. So, like when a player signs for that, $50 million a year, he gets paid that $50 million in 18 weeks, basically. So during the offseason, and it's always been that way. So back in the old days when they were only making about what, 30,000 a year, 40,000.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, they would have to have all season jobs because
the biggest contract at that time, and a lot of players were like, "Screw that! Was screwed up." Was when Namath signed for, I think, $400,000 or $500,000.
Wasn't like the first $1 million quarterback wasn't until like the 90s, right?
Yeah. Yep.
It was Marino.
Was it Marino? Oh gosh. Might have been. I got T-Bass's question here. It's the next one. The only person, we didn't lose anybody to the World League. The only person that played in the World League was, I believe, John Gilliam. But then when the league folded, he came back. But we didn't lose anybody per se, like the Dolphins lost Zonka, Kick, and Warfield. We didn't lose anybody like that.
Or what about the USFL?
We lost Keith Millard. We lost nobody else. I mean, Sam Harrell was a backup running back, and we lost him.
The USFL was a stable league until one owner decided to go head-to-head with the NFL.
Yeah.
If he would have stayed out of it, the USFL would probably still be around in its original form.
Yeah, but here's the funny part.
They won the case.
He won the case, but the fact that he only got $1 is what did him in. But he did win that case.
Yeah.
But he never talks about it. He will never talk. Matter of fact, if you bring it up, you'll piss him off.
Yeah.
But yeah, he won a case. But yeah.
Because he says, even though I won, I lost.
Yeah, because I think he was hoping to get absorbed into the NFL. and that's when even Roselle said he would never get in the NFL.
Yeah. If you want a hilarious story about the USFL, read the story. We'll go back to the '69 season here in a second, but I just with that question, Tony had it on a different tangent. If you want to know a funny season for the USFL, watch the documentary on the San Antonio Gunslingers.
Oh God.
they all they on payday, they all got there like 3 or 4 hours to wait in line to get their paycheck first, and there was a couple of guys who purposely bought a fast car so they could get to the bank first to make sure that they got paid.
Make sure they could cash it because 9 times out of 10 those checks bounced.
Yeah, so it's hilarious if you guys ever get a chance to watch it. There's the XFL when they brought back XFL. The main reason they used the Brahmins was because San Antonio Gunslingers is taken by an indoor league team.
Oh, okay.
So that's why they could use Gunslingers. That's why they went to the Brahmins, which I think is a dumb name, but that's what Dwayne wanted to call it. So,
well, he's the Brahma Bull.
Yeah, supposedly.
Unless
he, when he wasn't on the when he was on the football field, he wasn't the Brahma Bull. He was the pushover. But I digress.
Yeah, he lost his job to Warren Sapp. But Warren Sapp said though he knew he was going to wrestle.
Yeah,
they knew everybody. It was no secret in their locker room that they knew he was gonna go to wrestling.
Warren's like, it's good that he went to wrestling because he wasn't good at the other one.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's actually funny. All right, so they beat the Bears week 3, 31-0. That's when the Bears played at Wrigley.
Yeah, they got their first shutout then. And right then, I think people did. And right then, you could tell the defense was coming into something special.
Yeah.
With that, they started to dominate, and I think that's confidence builds that.
I mean, 2 shutouts in a season. I mean, do you think that could happen today? I mean, look how good Baltimore's defense is. Do you think they could shut out 2 teams in a season?
The NFL won't allow shutouts.
I mean, I'm sure they weren't happy.
You really had no choice with the Viking Raiders game because neither team looked like they wanted to win it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm sure the NFL was not happy about that.
Yeah, but the NFL does not want shutouts because, as they say, people turn off shutouts.
Not me. I love shutouts.
I love shutouts, especially if it's my team doing the shutting out.
Yeah. The worst loss in modern football, I think, is 61. I think the Patriots beat someone like 61-0. I can't remember who it was.
Well, they beat Tennessee like 61-7.
So, that was the Bengals. Was it the Bengals or the Oilers?
The Bengals beat somebody beat
60. The Oilers lost to the Bengals 61-7 in '93.
89. 89.
Then,
they ran up what's his name was mad about it, Glanville, because they ran up the score.
And then the Patriots.
The Patriots ran up like 63 or 64 on
to nothing. They shut them out. Because I saw it on YouTube the other day.
Yeah, it was in the snow.
Yeah, it was 62-0, something.
Yeah, and then
but the worst loss in NFL history is the Washington Redskins 73-0 to the Bears.
And that was a championship game.
Yeah.
That was in 1940. It was so bad. Put it this way. It was so bad. The Bears were running up to score in that game so bad. You know how they used to kick for the extra point, right? Well, when you kicked the ball, you didn't have the nets to catch it. It went into the crowd. They literally had to tell the Bears to go for 2 because they couldn't kick. They were running out of footballs.
Yeah. It's not like now where there's like 40 balls per game.
Yeah, it's not like now. They literally were running out of footballs. Bob Sweet, I do remember Wahoo McDaniel. I did see him. I saw him wrestle. I did see Wahoo wrestle. He played in the AFL for years.
Wow.
Yep, I remember.
Sounds more like a wrestling name than a football player name.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he played football and wrestled. He was big time. I do not remember him, T-Bass. Yeah,
my mom is a Redskins fan because she worked with Jim Lachey's sister.
Oh, okay.
So that's the reason why she's a Redskins fan. She still calls them the Redskins. She says I refuse to call them the Commanders. I think that's like 90% of your Washington team.
Right.
They got to cheer for that team. They refuse to call them anything with the red because it's been they were that name from 37 to 20 what 17 2018. So
Yeah, but you know what though? They'd still be the Redskins now if it wasn't for Daniel Snyder.
yeah,
Let's just be honest; they would still have that name. Um,
I'm having eye issues tonight, as you can probably see. My right eye is kind of so I have to kind of lean in a little bit to easily see when I don't have to. Yeah, we had to wait. I remember that.
oh, for Dolman?
What does he say? Because didn't he hold out? Chris
No,
Dolman?
Dolman. Here's what happened: the Vikings were going to draft Bill Fralick, and Fralick told the Vikings, "Don't draft me." So Minnesota, basically, what happened in '85 happened again in like two. It happened with Bryant McKinney, and it happened with Kevin Williams. The Vikings missed getting their card in, and then Fralick went to Atlanta. Dolman was on the board, but Houston wanted Ray Childress, the defensive tackle, and then we drafted Dolman after
He
him.
played for the Oilers, right?
Yeah, that in Houston was ahead of us, and so they drafted, and Dolman was drafted to replace Matt Blair.
Well, they made the right decision. Dolman was a hell of a
You know
lot
what?
better.
It didn't start out that way. It didn't start out that way. Dolman, he wasn't a linebacker. Put it that way. He wasn't a linebacker. He was a defensive end.
I also heard real quick. This is we're talking about a season, so it's not going to be like a typical hour and a half, 3 hour show because it's only one season. So we are kind of intertwining. I heard that the Vikings are going to offer Danielle Hunter outside linebacker money, not defensive end money.
And he wants the end money.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's why he's gone.
yeah. I think Harrison retired.
No, T-Bass, Dolman didn't play in the USFL. Keith Millard did.
Yeah, Keith Millard did. Yep.
Keith Millard played in the USFL.
Keith Millard, Reggie White, Jim Kelly. The USFL was throwing money around.
That's why they're broke.
Yeah.
Steve Young, Gary Zimmerman.
Yeah.
Um,
Reggie White, Steve Spurrier.
Sam Mills.
Sam Mills. Yeah, the Memphis Showboats, which when they, for some reason, I don't know if you guys remember the original Memphis Showboats, but their colors were not blue and yellow like they are in the.
No, they were red and blue.
Yeah.
Red, blue, and silver.
Yeah. So I don't know why they changed the colors because they kept the Panthers the same color.
Yeah, what are
like
what
that burgundy and blue? And by the way, Anthony Carter played for the.
Anthony Carter was with the Panthers, and then they merged. I forget who they merged with. Detroit merged with somebody at the end. It might have been Oakland, the Invaders.
The Invaders, yeah.
They merged, but yeah,
what's with Oakland having sweet ass nicknames?
And they have no teams.
The Invaders, the Raiders, yeah.
Yeah, and they have no teams. It's
check out the original Oakland Raiders logo, man. It's like the yellow, black, and like silverish.
Well, and the Raiders when they first started were not silver and black; they were black and gold.
Well, yellow,
gold. That's what they call it.
Yeah, the old gold was what you refer to like as gold. They don't want to say yellow because when you're yellow, then you're scared. So they call it yellow.
But it's
yellow.
Well, that the Rams jerseys now, that neon ass yellow. That's yellow.
Yeah,
that's yellow. But yeah, it's like the Raiders were black and gold, which tells me that Minneapolis team probably would have been wearing black and gold.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the gunslingers. Yeah.
And yeah, that's true. That's true.
They said if it was the highest paid player on the team, if he made it first, no one else got paid.
Yep. Yeah, the US. I mean, what could that league? But they were on life support when they started because they had started throwing money around.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, and that was the same thing with the World Football League. They just
I think NFL Europe would be more successful right now than when it was around.
I don't know why they got rid of it.
Well, you know how the owners are. soon as
Yeah,
as soon as they stop making a profit on anything.
well, and here's the thing, like I said before, it wouldn't shock me if the UFL is actually working with the NFL, which I think they are, because the
Well,
XFL was.
since Dwayne Mock took over, well, they've merged.
They merged,
The
but
United
they're working
Football
with,
League, which was actually the name of a previous league.
yeah, and they got that was Denny Green was coaching the team in the UFL.
Yeah.
Sacramento
He was a Sacramento Cats.
SaberCats.
SaberCats, yeah.
Dante was his quarterback.
Yeah. The AAF, which was run by Bill Polian, the football in that league was really good because Bill Polian was running it. But the guy doing the financial part had no clue what he was doing. That's why that season.
Well, their rules were they didn't have no kickoff.
So, but I actually went to a couple games because they had a team here in San Antonio. It was pretty. It wasn't that bad. They were there actually.
I'm sorry, if you ain't got no kickoff, I ain't interested. If you're gonna play football, play football.
Well, obviously the NFL doesn't think it works because they didn't adopt it.
Yeah, and guess what? The NFL is going to be without a viewer, and that'll be me because I won't watch the product.
Yeah,
I won't.
I have a hard time seeing an NFL game without a kickoff.
I have a hard time watching the NFL at times.
I would rather have them though because they pretty much ruined the onside kick. So, instead of doing an onside kick, I wouldn't.
Well, the onside kick wasn't guaranteed anyway.
Right, but now it's pretty much 0%, where before it was probably 10, 11, 12, 13.
The numbers were still not that good.
But now it's completely zero. So I wouldn't mind. What about that 4th and 15 play they're talking about? You get one shot to make the first down.
No. Oh, T-Bass. What does it say? No, it was actually built for the Twins. It was supposed to be multi-use, but they designed it and it looked more like a baseball park than a football park. But yeah, it was because they didn't even know they had football games out there, but it was built for the Twins. Twins got here first.
Yeah, which I don't understand. When you look back at that field, the one thing I don't understand is why the teams were on the same sideline, because if you look at the field, it looks like they had room to put.
You know what? There were a couple of stadiums that did that. Milwaukee County Stadium did it for the Packers. The Lions at Tiger Stadium did it with the Lions. I was watching,
even though there was enough room on the other side.
Yeah. I was watching an old highlight, and both teams were on the same sideline. That was more common than not. And depending on
do it nowadays.
Yeah, and depending on the stadium and the layout, yeah, it's that because here's the thing. With those, I'm surprised there weren't more fights on the sideline at Met Stadium, because you had, and I bring up, and this goes back to 69, when we were beating the Colts so bad, the Vikings were talking big time trash on the sidelines. Everybody. They was literally calling out the Colts.
Was Shula the coach of the Colts?
Yes. But Shula was a coach, I think. Yes. Shula was a coach. Unitas was a quarterback, but they were calling out the Colts. And the Vikings were calling them out and saying things, and they're right next to each other. Hell, you had Alan Page calling out Bubba Smith.
Shula was in his 7th year as a Colts coach.
Yep. So it's kind of like, I'm surprised that more altercations didn't happen. I just am. Was
it fear of coaches?
Oh, you didn't care. Some of the coaches were like, go over there and kick his ass.
I don't think Bud would be like that, though, right?
You'd be surprised.
Oh, yeah.
Bud wasn't going to put it this way. Bud might have said, if it doesn't cost us, sure.
Well, when you're up 52-17, is it really going to cost you?
Well, I'm surprised it just didn't happen more.
Yeah.
It's just, you kind of were like, Tarkin had gotten a fight in 74 with Ron Bolton of the Patriots. and these teams are on. It was literally the same sideline, and that was it. You know, I think they might have did it at Wrigley too. I'd have to look at an old highlight reel.
Did the Patriots ever play at Fenway?
Did they? Yes.
When they were the Boston Patriots?
They were the Boston Patriots. Yes, they did.
Okay.
Yes, they did. Okay, Paul Krause.
Hey, Bedore, hey, at least you're here learning, unlike Zoe.
Paul Krause was when you needed a quarterback for your defense, it was Paul Krause.
Well, you actually played quarterback too.
And he played quarterback at Iowa. But you know, you let Paul, when Paul talks about it, the reason he was so good was because of who he had in front of him, and he's talking about the front seven, the Purple People Eaters. When you had that type of pass rush that they had and those linebackers, you could roam. You could literally play center field, read the quarterback's eyes, and break on the ball like he did. I mean, Paul Krause and Bobby Bryant. Paul Krause is in the Hall of Fame and deservedly so. Bobby Bryant doesn't get enough credit. He doesn't get enough credit for being the cover guy that he was. He had 51 interceptions. And but he played corner as he should have been all pro more than he was. I think he only made the Pro Bowl once. But you know, everybody knows about Nate Wright, but Nate Wright's the victim of the push. But Bobby Bryant was another underrated Viking.
Krause was still with the Redskins in '69, right?
No, Krause got to the Vikings in '68.
Okay.
Yep. No, Norm Van Brocklin didn't mind fights at all.
Well,
you know,
maybe ones that he wasn't in.
No, he didn't mind fights at all. Matter of fact, he instigated if he could. But you know, Bud's thing. Here's the thing: Bud's teams were tough, mentally and physically.
Yeah.
And for that era of football, you had to be. But you know where we were the toughest? At the line of scrimmage. Quite the contrast from what's going on nowadays.
In '69, we were toughest at the quarterback position when Joe Cap ran over that dude from the Browns.
Oh. God rest his soul, Jim Houston. If you ever get the chance, people, Bob Swede, get the hell out of here. If you ever get the chance, on YouTube, they have that the highlight.
I've never banned anybody.
Right. They have the highlight reel of the '69 championship game between the Vikings and Cleveland. Fast forwarded to the part where Joe Cap literally runs over. He tries to hurdle Jim Houston. He catches Houston with his knee. Was it right in the head?
Let's see. It says
he collided. He tried to jump over him. He collided with him, and when he collided with him, Jim went straight down to the ground. Just fell.
Yeah, it says linebacker by running for a first down, and Houston tried to let's see, in the championship game against the Cleveland Browns, he collided with linebacker Jim Houston while running with the ball. While he and Houston collided, Houston had to be helped off the field after the play ended.
He was concussed.
Yeah,
he was concussed.
And back then, if you were concussed, he still played. So he must have been pretty bad if they took him off the field.
Well, and here's another thing too with that game, and that game was played on January 4th, 1970. It was like, Bob, I've seen the tape. It was a
tape. Okay, real quick. I live in Texas. I've seen the clip that they show of that play. It does not involve the push before he fell. So if that's the clip you're talking about, the Cowboys edited the part where he pushes him.
Right. He did push him.
Yeah.
He did. Oh, and by the way, Drew Pearson admitted he pushed.
Yeah. So
but
depending on what clip you're watching.
But that '69 championship game, Alan Page tells the story. It was really cold. It was like 6-7 degrees. You had the players with the gloves and everything. Well, one player, he heard this from the Cleveland Browns had broke his finger.
It was
And
8 degrees.
It was 8 degrees, and he went over to the sideline. Well, here's what happened. He wanted to keep playing, so they shot up his finger with Novocaine. Okay. He went back, finished the game, but then they realized frostbite set in. And he said that was pretty common back then playing in those games. They didn't get frostbite as much, but them games were cold as hell.
And they don't have, like, the clothes back then didn't have the insulation.
Right. I mean, you watch that game, you see Joe Cap blowing on his hands every play.
You can see, like, nowadays it'll be like this thin material, but yet you're warm as hell. Back then.
Do you have the picture I sent you?
I have all the pictures you sent me. I haven't downloaded them yet.
Find the one
we only have limited space, so I can find it for you.
If you can put it up there, find the one of the Vikings breaking the huddle, and there's all that steam around them. That's the NFL championship game.
Okay.
Jim Valone's in the picture, number 63. And that's kind of a historic. That tells you right there how cold it was. But there is part of the telecast for that game on YouTube. And it's, if you're from our age, it takes us back. It really does. But yeah, that game was, and then the Rams game the week before, it was overcast. I'm not sure how cold it was.
Okay, so you all right, you're talking about the NFC Championship, not the
NFL, the NFL championship game, yeah.
Okay, so
there should be number 63, number 87.
Right, and the Western Conference Championship game, it was 11 degrees.
Yeah, it was overcast. It was cloudy and 11 degrees.
You're right, negative 12 Celsius.
Yep.
And that was against the Rams.
That was against the Rams. That was real. That was real weather. That was real weather. Yeah, it was cold.
Yeah. So that's why they don't have an outdoor stadium today, because.
Well, yeah, and then but we lost our edge. We lost a lot of what the Viking mystique was when we went indoors. That's undeniable. I was hoping that they would have an outdoor stadium with this new stadium, but once again, they didn't do it.
I think after the playoff game against Seattle, and people realized how cold it was. I think.
Yeah, because they're a bunch of you-know-whats. They're a bunch of wusses. That's the picture. That is a picture. That picture right there tells you how cold it was that day. That's a classic pick.
Gotta love those old uniforms.
Yeah, I'd bring those back. I'd actually make the throwbacks they wore this year full-time, home uniforms, and then go back to what the old white uniforms were. With the shoulder stripe.
The shoulder stripe and the black and the purple pants.
Right. And go back to the shiny helmet with the gray face mask. You can't really go wrong with gray, white, or purple, but not black.
I do not like the black face mask at all.
No, I do not. Black isn't in our color scheme. Why is it on our face mask? Yeah, that's another thing too. That's another thing. That's the Thanksgiving game against the Lions. And that field was garbage. I mean, I saw highlights of that game. You couldn't even tell what yard line they were at. That's how bad that field was.
Why is the quarterback's uniform so clean?
Oh, he had just got in the game. Yeah, he had just got in the game. That's Munson. But, his pants look like hell. But But yeah, the top of the uniform was clean. But yeah, I think Landry started that game. But yeah, and we sacked him 9 times. That game in '69 there, the Thanksgiving game. That's the one where Alan Page or Jim Marshall intercepted the tip pass and lateraled it to Alan Page to score a touchdown when he knew he was getting tackled. So hey, JJ, that was in that game. And believe it or not, that game, the Lions were still in contention for the NFL Central.
Yeah, they finished second.
Yep.
9-4-1, I think.
Yep.
Yeah, 9-4-1. They finished second.
JJ, we've sacked a couple of teams 10 times before. Believe it or not, I think it was all Detroit. See, this is.
Yeah, it says tie games were not counted in the standings until 1972. And sacks did not count until.
Individual sacks weren't counted until 1981, 82.
Right.
82.
But the team sacks.
Team sacks would count. The Vikings had 49 that year.
Yeah.
Which was at that time the most in a season until the Vikings broke it in '89 with that front four.
Right. So now 49 sacks would be what, middle of the road?
You know what? 49 is still pretty good.
Because they throw a lot more, so you're going to get more sacks nowadays.
Yeah. Did any of the guys 69? Joe Kapp was a head coach at the University of California. He did become a head coach.
Did Paul Krause become a coach? I thought not a head coach, but like a.
No, he wasn't an assistant coach either. Carl Kosocki was an assistant coach at a college, but that was after his playing career, after he got paralyzed. Let me think. Grady Alderman was the Vikings color guy on radio. If you listen to the Ahmad Rashad Hail Mary catch, if you get the radio call, it's Ray Scott and Grady Alderman. The guy that yells the loudest touchdown is Grady Alderman. But Joe Kapp did become the head coach at the University of Cal. I don't think anybody else became a coach. I'm trying to think. At least not on a pro or maybe a college level. Charlie West. Charlie West was at Syracuse. He became a coach at Syracuse. Ed White was a line coach at San Diego State. That's about it. Fred Cox invented the Nerf football. No other. That's the only one is Joe Kapp. He became a head coach.
Yeah, NFL's got a list 17 players who became a head coach. A lot of Rams, like Bob Waterfield and all those type of games.
Waterfield, Norm Van Brocklin.
Yeah. Bart Starr, Autumn Graham, Sammy Baugh.
Yeah.
Forrest Gregg.
Okay. Otto Graham was coaching the Redskins. Matter of fact, he was the head coach when they drafted Paul Krause. Otto Graham traded Paul Krause to Minnesota because he said Paul Krause couldn't tackle.
Which we all know.
But to let Paul Krause tell it, if I had to make tackles, there was something going on up front because, like he said, he made 14 tackles in a Super Bowl. And that tells you right then the front seven weren't doing their job. Go ahead. I'm open to it. You'll probably stump me.
If it's newer Vikings, you probably have a better chance.
Right. Well, even the old stuff, because there's some stuff I forget about.
Yeah. So they played the Cardinals, who were in St. Louis, 27-10. That was Bush Memorial, so they also played. at
Yeah,
the
Bush
baseball
Memorial.
stadium.
That was Bush Memorial Stadium. That's where the baseball team played. As a matter of fact, part of the baseball infield was still down in this game.
I used to
They
hate
didn't
that.
have the artificial turf. I think it was still grass,
I used to hate that, going from the grass to the dirt.
they had the baseball infield still down. Who they play after that?
They played the Lions 24-10.
Okay.
So the Vikings are 5-1 at this point.
5-1. Okay. Ursa McBee had 3 interceptions that game. And of course, the Vikings were beating up on the Lions, the Lions quarterbacks, but that was Greg Landry.
That was the close game.
Most of the Lions games were close. The Lions,
the 24-10 was the close one that year.
Yeah, but they still couldn't.
Yeah.
Joe, there was just enough offense, but you had just enough offense and just enough defense. And when you had a defense like that, you could win games like 9-7, 3-0, and 6-3 and stuff like that.
And then the next one was the Bears, 31-14. The Bears only had one win that year.
Yep. And I want to say that was one of the next to last games that Brian Piccolo played in with the Bears, because he played in that game. That was also the game for the Vikings. They sacked Bobby Douglas 9 times. And that's the game where Clint Jones had the 80-yard TD run that stood for, in Viking history, for like...
Until Taylor broke it, right? Chester Taylor?
No, the one that broke it was Michael Bennett. And that was in 2002. He ran for 85 yards against Tampa Bay.
And then Chester Taylor broke that.
Then Chester Taylor broke that.
Okay.
But yeah, that record stand for what? 79, 89, 99, 2000, 33 years.
Is that a good or bad thing?
Well, I think Chuck Foreman's longest run was 50, 51.
Well, he would go out of bounds though, wouldn't he? Would do like the Robert Smith, right?
What's that?
Foreman, like if he was on the sideline, he'd go out of bounds sometimes.
No, Foreman would actually try to run over people, because Chuck was technically a fullback. Yeah, he did. That's a game where Paul made 14 tackles because they couldn't get it done up front.
Zonka was a man among boys that game.
Yeah, and they went right after Alan Page.
And then they beat the Cleveland Browns twice at 69. The first one, the championship game, was actually close. The first time they played wasn't. It was 51-3.
Yeah, that was ugly. No, Chuck wasn't that fast, but he had moves.
Yeah,
he had the moves. As he got older, though, he slowed down because the knees.
Yeah,
but
like he wasn't Robert Smith fast.
No, and Robert was track fast. Robert looked slow. He had that long stride.
Yeah,
as a runner, which made him look like, why are they not catching this dude? He don't look that fast.
Right.
But yeah. But that was that track speed. But no, at 69 when they beat Cleveland, and Cleveland was like when they played Cleveland regular season, Cleveland was like the hottest team. And they just dominated them. T-Bass, which Douglas are you talking about? Because the only Bobby Douglas I knew was a joke. He couldn't throw worth a damn. He was a great runner.
Yeah, he could run.
He could not throw. He could not throw. He was a terrible quarterback. And sacking him 9 times was actually easy because every time unless he was leaving the pocket, he was going to get sacked.
He's Justin Fields is a modern day.
Yeah, Justin Fields is basically Bobby Douglas.
He can throw a little bit better.
Yep. He's Bobby Douglas. And Bobby was a left-hander.
Yeah.
He was left-handed.
Number 12, right?
Huh?
He wore 12, right?
He started out wearing 14. Matter of fact, in that 69 game, if you watch the highlights, he wore 14, and then they switched him to 10.
Okay.
He was wearing number 10. But yeah, he had Bobby Douglas had like 968 yards rushing one
He
year.
was
I think it
leading
was
rusher. I
72.
think that. For
Yeah, that
years,
was a record for
2 years in a
quarterback.
row. I think he was the Bears' leading rusher.
Yep, he had 968 yards. He never got 1,000, Bob. He came close, but he never got 1,000.
I think Vic is the only quarterback to get 1,000, right?
It's got to be Vic.
Fike or either Jackson or Vic, one of those two.
Yeah, I think Vic was the first.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was the second loss that year by the Browns. They lost to the Lions earlier, which how that happened.
They came into Minnesota and got throttled.
Right. They were 10-3-1 that year.
Yeah.
So they beat the Cowboys in the playoffs before they played the Vikings in the championship.
Yep.
Back then, it was 4 teams that made the playoffs. 2 from the West.
Yeah, you had now here's a trivia question for a lot of people. What was the name of the divisions? There are 4 divisions. What was the name of them? I know them already.
We got key basketballs.
Are you looking it up? I can save you that problem.
No, I'm just looking at the records. No, I'm just wondering if anybody in the chat knows if T-Bass knows or anything like that.
Yeah, Bob. Central was 1. Capital was 2. Century was 3.
And that's the division the Browns were in.
Yep. Coastal was 4. So you had the Central, the Century, the Capital, and the Coastal.
So the Central would have been the Vikings, Bears, Lions.
Basically, it's the NFC North.
Right.
It's the NFC North. The Coastal, you're going to have to help me out with this one.
Okay.
The Coastal had to be the Rams, the Niners, and I could be completely off.
Yes, let's see here. So the Capital was the Cowboys, the Redskins, the Saints, and the Eagles.
Okay, so then where were the Giants in the Century?
So the Century was the Browns, the Giants, the Cardinals, and the Steelers.
Wow. So the Rams were in the Coastal.
And then let me go back. Right team, okay. And then the Rams. Gotta go all the way down to the bottom. The Rams were in the Coastal, which was the Rams, the Colts, the Falcons, and the Niners. God, what a weird division.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was like, we don't have anywhere to put these teams. Let's just throw them all together.
Yeah, and then don't forget now when 70 rolled around, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and Cleveland moved to the AFC.
When they merged.
Yeah, when they merged. But yeah, that's the only division that has everybody pretty much central was the Central.
Yeah. Which is weird because you wouldn't. That's a weird division names like Century.
Well, and when they expanded with New Orleans and Atlanta, you had extra teams.
So that explains why the Falcons were in the AFC West thing.
Falcons and Saints both.
So that makes sense.
Yep.
So
Falcons and Saints were both.
They just stayed with them when they kept expanding. They just stayed in the division. I always wondered that. So it seems like the Central has always been the most logical division.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And geographically, when they put the East together, the real misfit was probably the Cowboys. But the Cowboys already had the built-in rivalries with uh,
The
the
Giants.
Redskins and the
Yeah.
Giants and the Cardinals, that they kept it the same. And the Eagles, they just threw in. The Eagles were
Yeah, because I was always wondering during the '80s why the Cardinals were in the East, even though they were in Arizona, and the Falcons and Saints were in the West. To me,
well, and you know what? And people should have really wondered why was Tampa Bay in the NFC Central.
yeah,
The reason for that was for the cold weather teams to get one game in Florida a year, and it was usually at the end of the year. Get that one game where you're out of the cold. I know that's why they did it. I know that's why they did it.
well, at least the divisions make sense now.
All except the AFC South, with the
Oh, the Colts are
exception.
kind of far.
Yeah, the Colts are basically like a
They could be in the
northern
Central.
city. But
Colts
yeah,
could be in the Central. Could be in the Central.
right. And the fact that the divisions still line up, even with the Rams moving, even with the Raiders moving, it's still the same.
Yeah.
I don't. Has anybody moved other than them?
Seattle from the AFC to the NFC, but other than that,
Well, Seattle started out in the NFC.
yeah.
You know,
Um,
but
and I
you've
think
got both
in
Tampa.
Cleveland, yeah, like you said, Cleveland going from the NFL to the AF,
But that region now makes sense. You've got Cincinnati,
yeah.
Cleveland, Baltimore, and Pittsburgh, so that makes sense. Still, though, you know what? You still got the Cowboys in the East, and that's only because of history. If anything, they should be in the South.
Yeah.
You know, because they're a Southern team, but it's history. So you've got that. But yeah, back then, I mean, and they knew they were going to have to realign the divisions anyway. So the only two misfits really were the two Southern teams. So you had to put them somewhere. So give them West Coast trips. Put them in different, have them play in different time zones. Put it that way.
I'm sure that was fun for the players.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So who do we play after Cleveland?
After Cleveland, it was Green Bay. That was that 9-7 game.
Right. That was a dogfight. Yeah, that was a dogfight. And then after
it was the 52-14 Pittsburgh game.
Yeah, that's a year before Pittsburgh got Terry Bradshaw.
And then it was the next week was the 27-0 shutout over the Lions.
Thanksgiving Day.
And then the first matchup with the Rams, 20-13.
And that was probably equivalent to the NFL game of the week, because the Rams coming into that game had only lost, I believe, one game. And they were
undefeated.
Oh, were they undefeated?
They were undefeated.
Okay.
They lost the last 3 games that year.
Oh, okay.
So they lost to the Vikings 20-13. Then they got shut out by the Lions, and then they lost to the Colts.
They got shut out by the Lions?
28-0.
Okay.
I wonder if someone got hurt.
For who? The Lions?
For the Rams.
For the Rams? Well, what's his name was, for as good as he was erratic, and that's Roman Gabriel.
Yeah.
He would have his games where he just...
So the last 3 games of the year, they scored 20 points total.
Who? The Rams?
The Rams. Because they scored 13 against Minnesota, 0 against the Lions, and then 7 against the Colts.
Jeez.
And they allowed 61 points. So they got outscored 61-20 the last 3 games.
And then that playoff game,
and 2 of them were at home.
And that playoff game, they came up here and they were winning 17-7 at halftime. Yeah, they were up 17-7. Yep. Actually, the modern day Tarkenton is probably... I mean, I'd sign Wentz. What the hell?
Josh Allen, maybe?
Yeah, Josh Allen. Although Josh will run over people, Fran would never run over anybody.
Yeah,
Um,
because Lamar Jackson's too athletic.
actually, you know who Josh is a lot like is Roman Gabriel.
Yeah,
He's a lot like Roman Gabriel from the how he runs the football, but he's a and Josh gets streaky, but he will throw those interceptions. Roman Gabriel would do the same thing. So we've got we beat the Rams, and then we came home to the Niners.
After, I'm on the Rams schedule right now. So after they played the Rams, it was the Niners. It was 10-7.
Yeah, and that was basically playing a snowstorm. There's a couple of pictures I sent you of that game. That was basically a snowstorm. That was also the game where I think it was halftime. They put a kid in a hot air balloon, and the balloon was only supposed to go so high. That's the Rams game.
That's the Rams game, back when the Rams were blue and white.
Yep.
They didn't, because they just moved from Cleveland. When did they move from Cleveland?
Well, they moved from Cleveland in the 40s.
They kept blue and white. When did they add the?
Well, no, they were when they moved from Cleveland. When they were the Cleveland Rams, they were yellow and gold, and then they were blue and gold when they got to LA, and then they went to blue and white. I'm gonna say in like 63 or 64.
Blue and white does not look good.
Maybe 62. You know what though? I like the blue and white. I like the blue and gold though too.
Not compared to those Vikings uniforms. My God, those are sweet.
Those are, you talk about classic uniforms, both of them.
I kind of have one on now. I got the Warren Moon.
Yeah, see that. Those are classic uniforms. Those uniforms right there. If the NFL went back to those, I wouldn't care. Matter of fact, I prefer the Vikings to be in those uniforms with the shiny helmet instead of this matted helmet like they are now.
I don't like the matte or the black face mask.
Yeah, just if you don't have black in your color scheme, don't wear black.
Yep.
That's just me. I know I'm old school, but that's just me.
No, I'm the same way. I'm trying. What you said? I see a lot of pictures of the Rams and the Vikings and the Lions and the Vikings.
A couple of teams are getting uniform overhauls next year too.
Texans are one of them, and the one thing I heard is that they're going to have the blue accent from the Houston Oilers days.
Yeah, from that light blue, that love you blue.
The guy who's seen them says they are fantastic. He absolutely loves them.
What color are the helmets? White?
He can't say.
But is it white?
He can't say.
But you know what it is.
But he was questioned that, and he says, I can't say. He's like, I can't even confirm or deny. He's like, I can't say. But he has a non-disclosure agreement. So
I did hear they were going to put that.
The only thing that he was allowed to say was that the Oiler blue is going to be in the uniforms.
Well, the Broncos are going to have new uniforms too.
They need to, because those hideous. I like the number font, but the rest of the uniforms.
Here's the thing: you're going to hate it when I tell you this. I'll have to show you send you the prototype that I saw. It's bad.
It's not the Elway uniforms with the D with the horse.
No.
Did they go back to the brown and yellow?
They put mountains on it.
Well, it makes sense.
They put mountains. They have like a mountain on the shoulder pad type of thing.
Oh my God. I thought you were talking about like the mountains on the helmet. That wouldn't be as bad.
No, the helmets are going, I guess, white.
I hate white as a helmet. I understand why some teams have the white, like the Dolphins. I totally understand why they have white. But
you know what? The Dolphins need to get the aqua face mask.
Yes, they need to go back to the 66 uniforms that they wear as throwbacks. They need to wear those permanently.
Yeah, or gray or aqua. They need to go back to that.
Yeah, instead of just the white on white. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but yeah, Those uniforms were just classic. Those were classic.
And the Falcons uniforms when they first became a team, those uniforms were pretty sweet.
I liked all the Falcon uniforms up until I'm sorry,
Glanville.
piping down the side like the Vikings used to have.
Well, did you see like the Glanville uniforms?
Huh?
You like the Glanville uniforms?
I like the red one.
For those of you guys who don't know, the Glanville uniforms are the ones they wore in '98.
Yeah, the all black.
When he did black on black.
Yeah, that was Glanville. The helmet, not so much. The jersey, the uniform, the jersey was kind of like the throwback to the old school.
Right.
But what was it? Gray pants. Yeah, I could live with that.
Yeah.
But the helmet should be red.
Yeah. Not you today. The helmet should be red today.
It should be red today.
Yeah.
You
notice all those teams, all those ugly ass '90 uniforms are starting to get away. It took the Cardinals forever to get rid of. Those were the uniforms.
That's because the Bidwells
are
are running it. That's why it took so long.
Not every team can have classic uniforms like the Raiders.
No.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I love the Vikings, but the Raiders have the best uniform in the NFL to me.
You can't go wrong with that silver and black.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong with that.
And so the Falcons were the last game. It was 3-7.
10-3.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. I don't know why I said 7. I was looking at the 49 game. Yeah, 10-3, 3-10. They only got a field goal. But that Packers game, when they won 9-7, they didn't get a touchdown on that one either. That was all field goals.
No, yeah, that was all Fred Cox field goals.
Yep. Then we have the 2 playoff games. So the final standings for 69 in the Central, the Vikings were 12-2, the Lions were 9-4-1, the Packers were 6-8, and the Bears were 1-13. The Bears did not win any game in the division. The Vikings went undefeated in the division.
Yeah, the Vikings swept the division.
Yeah. Points for 379, points against 133.
That was a modern day record up until I forget, might still be 133.
The Lions defense wasn't bad, 188 points, but they only scored 250.
They only scored 200. The Vikings scored as many points as they did thanks to those 3 games they had in the 50s. By the way, that was the year that all 4 of the Purple People Eaters played in the Pro Bowl.
Yeah, and then the Chicago Bears, they scored 210 points and allowed 339.
Who was their coach? Jim Dooley? Or was it Abe? It wasn't Abe Gibran, was it?
Let's see here. I'm trying to see here. Trying to see where this coach is at. Season was the 50th.
Yeah, it was their 50th year. It was the 50th anniversary. That's those patches on the NFL uniforms, NFL 50, which was a hell of a lot better than what the NFL did for the 100th anniversary.
See, the head coach was Jim Dooley.
Jim Dooley?
Yep.
Okay.
And the Wrigley Field was their home field.
Yeah.
Which is weird because Soldier Field was open then. So I don't know why they didn't play.
They didn't move to Soldier Field until 71.
Yeah.
And I think the Cubs might have had something to do with that. Now, Soldier Field had been open for years. They used to have the college all-star game there.
Was that when the college played the pros, or was that
just the college would play the NFL champions and later the Super Bowl champions, the college all-stars. That was a preseason game. But that was always at Soldier Field.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Packers did have Lambeau Field, but they split time between Lambeau and Milwaukee County Stadium.
Yeah, because why? They couldn't sell out, so they had to move.
So they had to.
The Packer fans are the most loyal. No, they're not.
No,
they're not.
Oh, by the way, that first game of the year, the Vikings played the New York Giants at Yankee Stadium. The Giants played their home games in Yankee Stadium up until 72.
Yes. So Yankee Stadium, Metropolitan Stadium, Wrigley
Field,
Bush Memorial, another baseball stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Metropolitan, Milwaukee County, Tiger Stadium, Los Angeles Coliseum, and Metropolitan Stadium in Atlanta Field. So basically, they were all baseball stadiums.
Yeah, and Atlanta was the old Fulton County Stadium.
Yeah,
That was where the Falcons played.
yeah. So they were all baseball fields. I guess the Coliseum is more of a
The Coliseum is there's
but
so
that
much.
was an awful baseball field.
Which one? Coliseum?
LA Coliseum.
They played
They had to
baseball
put up,
in
they
there?
had to put up a wire or something like that. The Dodgers played there
Really?
when they first moved to Los Angeles. Yeah, they played at the Coliseum. They had to put chicken wire up,
Oh, for God's
and
sake.
it was like 309 to like left field or something like that.
Oh my God.
It was an awful stadium, yeah, for baseball.
Well, it was, and for football, you talk about it got to the point where I think we played the Rams one year, 74. They had 90,000 people in that stadium for that game. But with the Raiders, when the Raiders got there in the 80s, if you looked at the Raiders, they sold out certain parts of the stadium, but then they closed off like the far end zone part. And that's how they avoided blackouts because they cut down the capacity. I like the Coliseum. The location is probably what did it in. So
Message your part message thing. Or I can leave you to talk for a little bit.
okay.
I can, yeah.
So of course we beat the Rams, beat the Browns for the NFL championship. We lose the Super Bowl. We were outplayed in the Super Bowl. We lost to the Chiefs. The Chiefs were a wild card team for the AFL. We didn't play our game. The Chiefs came out ready to play, and the Chiefs had on the defensive side of the ball, they had a lineup of all stars and Hall of Famers: Willie Lanier, Bobby Bell, Johnny Robinson, Jim Lynch, Buck Buchanan, Curly Culp, Jerry Mays. You had two Minnesota Golden Gophers. You had Aaron Brown at defensive end and Bobby Bell at linebacker. You had Jim Kearney in the backfield, Emmett Thomas, Jim Marsalis. It was that team was just stacked. But the thing that probably was the Viking downfall was the defense. They found a way to neutralize the pass rush, and the two guys they neutralized were Jim Marshall and Carl Eller. They were able to run the ball, which ended up being kind of like a thing with the Vikings. You could run on them in Super Bowls. And the worst part about that game was the microphone on head coach Hank Stram. So you got to hear all the things he said negative about the Vikings. And there was a lot. He kind of didn't give us any kind of props, no respect, no nothing. He made a lot of smart-ass comments about the team. And for a lot of the Vikings, especially those that played in the 4 Super Bowls, that first one was a hard pill to swallow. They never got over it. And Joe Cap got hurt in that game. He came out, but he went back in, but it was over by then. And yeah, that was otherwise the 69 season was a hell of a season for this football team, but that, losing that Super Bowl put the biggest damper on the season. It doesn't take away how you got there. And I tell this to people. The Vikings played in 4 Super Bowls, but getting there is half the battle. To get there, you have to go through a lot just to get there. That's with any team that makes it that far. To win it is icing on the cake. But to to get there, that says a lot. And the Vikings did not have the horses to, as they say, finish the job. Kansas City came out, they kicked 2 early field goals. The Vikings turned the ball over quite a bit in that Super Bowl. Only bright spot was probably John Henderson, the wide receiver. He had 7 catches for 111 yards. He had over 100 yards receiving, which was a lot back then in the NFL, especially in that day and age for football. Dave Osborne scored our only touchdown. But yeah, that was a bitter pill to swallow for that team. And the team stayed intact the next year, except for the biggest change, and that was Joe Cap. Joe Cap didn't come back. He got into a contract dispute with the team, and they traded him to the then Boston Patriots. But he was the MVP in '69, and that is where there is a film of him not accepting the MVP award. That's where he said there is no most valuable Viking. There are only 40 most valuable Vikings. 40 for 60, I can't accept this. And he put it back. That was a team. Those guys played for each other. They would go to war with each other. Joe was their leader. That was the definition of a team. And their motto was 40 players given their all for 60 minutes, 40 for 60. And that was kind of the motto of that team. Now, the biggest question, and a lot of people, I've even asked this question, how did the Vikings get the nickname the Purple People Eaters, and who gave it to them? From what I understand, it was the Vikings were playing so well. Well, it came from the national media. I forget who it was that put it out there, but they're the ones that started calling that defensive line the Purple People Eaters, named after the Sheb Wooley song put out 10, 11 years earlier. Purple People Eater, Purple People Eaters. The defense hated it. Jim Marshall, the name grew on him, but they didn't like the name at the time. They kind of called themselves the Purple Jersey Gang, and then they called themselves the Purple Gang. So you had a couple of names there, but it was the national media that gave them the Purple People Eaters. Players didn't care for it. Now they look at it. They look at it as like a badge of honor. But yeah, that's the '69 team was the start of what would be the standard that was set for future Viking teams. It all started with that '69 team. That's where the standard was set, and there's been very few teams that lived up to that standard consistently. And these teams, the teams we've definitely had recently, just don't stack up. So
They're not as tough now.
yeah, and with the way the NFL is nowadays, it's hard to play defense. Let's just be honest. It is hard to play defense. So yeah, that was the '69 season. We covered it. Like we said, you're going to get the good with the bad and the ugly. So, we're going
I wish we had a picture of them holding up the trophy, but they don't got it.
I think I had a picture somewhere of Joe Cap drinking champagne in the locker room. That's it. Yeah, there was no trophy to hold up. But you know what's funny? I don't have a trophy of them holding up the NFC Championship trophies either.
Was that because, did they take the pictures back then like they do nowadays?
You know what? And I'm going to say back then, if the team let you in the locker room, yeah. There were a lot of teams that didn't let the press in the locker room until the players had a moment with each other, win, lose, or draw. and then they let the press in. But now it's like instant access. As soon as they get as soon as the game is over, which I'm not a big fan of.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of it at all. But yeah, that's the 69 team. We will cover the other Super Bowl teams. We will also cover some teams that were close to getting to the Super Bowl. We've got a lot to talk about, folks. So we'll be doing this all year because there's a ton of stuff. And we're still open to your suggestions. Anything you want to talk about? Any player, season, situation, game? We are open to it. It's all a part of Viking history, good, bad, in between. So,
yeah. A lot of people don't know that the Vikings have a championship because, as you know, typical Packer fans. Well, how many championships do you have? The trophy case is looking empty over there. Well, yeah, the trophy case is empty because you guys have our damn trophy.
yeah, you got one of our trophies, assholes. You got one of our trophies. So, and we got 4 Super Bowl rings. So, do we need to bring up the history of where you guys sucked between 1968 and 1991?
And before you got Vince Lombardi, you were
you weren't that good.
After the 20s, when you won all them championships, when there was like 4 teams.
Yeah, I should hope you won some of those damn championships. You've been in the league longer than most people have been alive.
So, like from the late 40s until they got Lombardi, the Packers were trash too.
Yeah.
So let's not act like the Packers have always been a top, team since they've been a team.
Well, they've had a.
And don't sit there and say you're an owner either, because you're not a damn owner. You don't have no say so what the hell the team does.
No, that piece of paper doesn't give you jack shit.
You're a shareholder with no power. It's like the only company in the world where the shareholders have no power.
They got as much power as an owner as I do as a GM for the Vikings.
Yeah.
They ain't listening. They're not. So, plus, who the hell wants to play in Green Bay?
That's what I tell people all the time. The only reason they get players is because of the quarterbacks that they've had the last 30 years. Before Reggie White, see, this is what the other thing people don't understand. Before Reggie White, free agents did not go to Green Bay.
No, Reggie went to Green Bay because they built him a church.
Yeah. It was the last team. It was the last people on people's list for free agency. It was Green Bay.
And Reggie had a ton of choices. He did. Yeah. And they were major markets.
Yep.
But Green Bay built him a church. So, and they got lucky with Brett Favre.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got lucky with Brett Favre.
Yeah, so that championship game, it was 36 degrees, so that was warmer compared to the games they played before that.
Which championship game?
The Falcons game that's why it was so warm.
It was rainy though too. It was like a thunderstorm.
Yeah, it was. Let's see.
It was a downpour.
So So Bill Nelson was a quarterback for the Browns, huh?
Yep, Bill Nelson quarterbacked the Browns. Well, okay, I'll tell you who the opposing quarterbacks were going down the list. Season opener against the Giants, it was Tarkenton. Week 2, it was Johnny Unitas. Week 3, I think it was Jack Concannon for the Bears.
They still had Bart Starr.
That was the Packers. Week 3 was the Packers, Bart Starr. Week 4 was Concannon with the Bears, wasn't it?
They had Bobby Douglas, Jack Concannon, and Virgil Carter.
Virgil Carter, who ended up with the Bengals. Jack Concannon, I think, started. And then who do we play next?
The Cardinals.
Jim Hart.
Yeah.
And then after that was Detroit.
Yeah.
Greg Landry. And then after that was Chicago.
I think that's probably the one that Douglas started.
That's
Right?
Bobby Douglas. Cleveland was Bill Nelson. Bart Starr again in Milwaukee. And then
Steelers.
Steelers with Terry Hanratty, wasn't it?
They had Hanratty, they had Kent Nix, and Dick Steiner.
Dick Shiner.
Dick Shiner. Yeah.
Okay. Nice name, Dick Shiner.
Richard Earl Shiner. His parents had a sense of humor.
Oh my God.
And then it was Lions again.
They were the quarter, but I think Hanratty started, and then we went to the Rams. That was Gabriel. The Niners, Steve Spurrier started for the Niners.
Because John Brody was the backup.
Yep, Steve Spurrier. And then for the Falcons game, that was Bob Berry. The former Viking, Bob Berry.
Bob Berry, Randy Johnson, and then Bruce Lemmerman.
What's the name?
Lemmerman. Lemmarman.
Lemmerman, yeah. Yeah, Lemmerman.
So he was the third string. How about practice squad only had 2 players on it back then?
Oh, the taxi squad?
Yeah.
Who were the 2 players?
For the Falcons or for the Vikings? Let me go back.
Who was it for the Falcons?
Let's see here. Okay.
Oh, Vikings fan, 123. I've been a Viking fan since 1971. I was 5 years old. So when I saw
for me, it was like, I want to say like 1979, because 1980 around there, because I was 5, and my dad was watching the Vikings on TV, and I thought their helmets were the coolest ever.
Yeah. So the era I'm talking about 69, which is 2 years before I started watching. But I was alive. I just didn't. I was too young. I didn't pay attention.
Yeah.
I think the Vikings. The Vikings didn't have a number 1 draft choice that year, so it was Ed White. Ed White was their top draft choice. Ed White came out of California. He was a defensive tackle in college, but we moved him to the offensive side. We made him a guard, which he became an all-pro at and deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. That was probably the only rookie that made it from that year of notoriety.
So the taxi squad for the Vikings were Mike McCaffrey,
Okay.
linebacker, and Volley Murphy.
Volley Murphy was on the taxi squad.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And McCaffrey.
Yeah.
I don't think he played a down with the team.
And for the Falcons, it was Bob Riggy.
Bob Riggy, yeah.
He was a safety, and then Mike Donahoe. Was that the guy who was a coach?
What's the name?
Mike Donahoe? Or
Could've
am I
been.
thinking of somebody else? A coach with the last name Donahoe.
You're thinking of Donahue.
Okay. Yeah, so Donahoe was drafted by the Vikings.
Yeah, Bob, that Purple People Eater song came out in 1958. Sheb Woolley.
Yeah, Mike, the guy on the taxi squad for the Falcons.
Who was?
69 was drafted by Minnesota in 68. Donahoe.
Tom Donahoe?
Mike. It says Mike. It says Mike O'Pierce Donahoe. Donahoe was drafted in the 9th round in the 68 NFL draft by the Vikings.
Okay.
And would go on to play 3 seasons with the Falcons.
Okay.
He played for the Packers his last 2 years.
Okay, he was a Packer. Okay.
He went to University of San Francisco. She doesn't have a team anymore.
Yeah, and I don't even think they got a football team anymore.
Yeah. So we're going.
I don't even
look at the practice squad now. I mean, it's 16 players?
10 or 12 players.
Yeah.
Yeah, 10 or 12 players. And taxi squad basically was back then.
Good night, Mama.
Good night. And Taxi Squad back then was just what 2 or 3 players.
And they're just practice bodies probably.
Yeah, they're just practice bodies. Um,
Yeah, I looked up trying to figure out who coined the purple people eaters, like in the media, and it doesn't say.
yeah, it was national. It wasn't even like local here in the Twin Cities. It was national. Um, they got the name stuck. The name stuck.
Yeah. So you've been a fan since 2015. Well, at least you're here learning history. Unlike some people who actually do Viking content who don't even show up.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of it's the thing is, a lot of people talk about the state of the current team, but you can only talk about that ad nauseum, and it gets to the point where it's kind of like, okay, we're beating a dead horse. Um, it's you have to know, like, and JJ said it on one of the podcasts. In order to know the future of the team, you got to know the past.
Yeah.
So
You got to understand where when we talk about how
you
the
gotta
team,
you gotta understand with a lot of us where the passion for this team comes from.
yeah, and why we think 7-10 is not okay.
Exactly. Yep, exactly. Which is why I get riled up. I have to do it at the end of the season. I have to take a step back and just decompress from football. It's as I get older, I don't do as much with football. I don't coach anymore, and I'm not part of the semi-pro scene anymore. So it used to be year round. Now I got that time off to get away from football. And after this year, this team really has me questioning my loyalty because I don't know what direction they're going in. They showed me they're happy with mediocre.
Well, I can tell you right now, it's probably going to be 30, at least 35 a year for number 8.
And I hope it's not guaranteed.
So
I hope
I
it's
think
not
he wants. I think what the rumor is 3-year contract, 2 years guaranteed, 35 a year.
Well, now here's what you did. You screwed over KOC. He's tied to Cousins. You've anchored KOC. You've anchored Cousins to KOC.
But does KOC? I think KOC wants Cousins because Cousins covers a lot of his issues.
You know what though? Here's the thing: KOC needs to adjust.
What have we seen it?
He won't adjust. He's going to have to grow as a coach. I mean, he
proved that with Dobbs.
He's getting He's getting out coached and out schemed every week.
Yeah.
And it's getting to the point where it's going to be embarrassing.
He's not McVay.
He's not even close. He's not even Jay Gruden.
I'm going to be pissed when another team signs Harbaugh and he takes him to the bowl.
Well, he's in the building. He was in the building. You didn't want him.
Can they get rid of a minority owner and replace him with somebody else? Like, can they do like a no confidence vote?
He shouldn't have a say so in it anyway. He's a minority owner.
Well, not just a minority owner, but a minority owner.
Well, yeah, he's minority. Yeah, in more ways than one. Well, also they had a problem with the woman that was in charge of diversity and other shit. She didn't like Harbaugh either.
No, because he hurt her feelings.
So he didn't get the gig. We're going to be paying for not signing Harbaugh for a while until they get a competent coaching. Put it this way, with Mike Vrabel out, I like Mike Vrabel. I do.
Yeah, but Flores, they'd get rid of Flores though. From what everybody's saying, Flores is coming back.
Yeah, because the job openings, there's not going to be that. Well, Seattle's now open, but that looks like it could go to Dan Quinn. Who's going to look at Antonio Pierce? I think Tennessee. Yeah, Tennessee's gonna look at Antonio Pierce.
Right. And he played for the Giants.
Right. We still don't know what's going on with Belichick.
Right.
Belichick is a wild card.
So I know we don't talk current, but 2 coaches today. We mentioned one just now, Pete Carroll. Got fired, released, whatever. What about the college coach who just retired, Nick Saban? I think NIL is the reason why.
That's what I think.
Because he's too old, he doesn't want to go out and recruit, and all the best players would just come to him, so he didn't really have to recruit. Yeah, he'd go to their house, he'd probably talk to them on the phone, but he wasn't hitting the road like recruiting. But with the NIL, all those players that they get to choose from, they don't get those anymore. Same thing with Clemson. So like Clemson's not as good.
Many
Because
of them are
Clemson-
one and done.
Because Clemson and Alabama were doing NIL before NIL was legal.
Yep. And he was vocal about the NILs last year.
Yeah, he didn't want them.
Right. Why? Because that money that the boosters are paying those players with went into the coach's pocket.
Yeah.
So he's got a problem with it. But you know what? It was time for him to hang it up anyway.
I mean, he won more championships than Bear Bryant did.
Right. Couldn't hack it in the NFL.
Yeah,
but,
he didn't win as many SEC championships, but he won more national championships.
Right. He couldn't hack it in the NFL.
Bear Bryant won 11 SEC championships and 6 titles. Nick Saban won 6 SEC titles.
But you know what? The probably one of the biggest games in all of college football history was, believe it or not, the ass kicking that he took from USC in 1970. He had to change the landscape of Alabama football, and he knew it. Best running back in Viking history, pure runner AP, all-around running back Chuck Foreman.
The most important Viking of all time, probably Foreman.
Most important Viking of all time,
running back.
Running
what he
back
meant to the team.
Foreman.
Because I know Foreman fumbled, but I doubt he'd ever fumbled 4 times in the championship game.
What running back didn't fumble? Hell, AP was a king at it. He had strong hands, and he was fumbling.
Robert Smith, I think he had 6 fumbles his whole career.
Yeah. Yeah, Robert didn't fumble much. It's Chuck all around back is going to be Chuck.
Yeah, and Chuck Foreman is the reason why Robert Smith did not have a longer career. Robert Smith did not want to, because if you ever see Chuck Foreman at an event, you can see what being a running back did to him. Robert Smith,
he looks like a running back.
Said Robert Smith, when they asked him why he retired, his exact words were, "We were at a Viking event and I saw Chuck Foreman walking, or should I say barely walking, and I'm like, I did not want to be like that." So that's the reason why Robert Smith retired early. Plus, I think he liked football, but he wasn't about football.
He wasn't about football.
Astronomy, and he
was a nerd.
Yeah.
He was a nerd.
I mean, there's a story for him when he was at Ohio State, the coach at the time at Ohio State. Was it Cooper, I think? John Cooper, does that sound right?
Was it Cooper or Tressel?
Right. I think this was before Tressel. So but he told him that he told him to skip class so he could come to practice. And that's why Robert Smith left the team.
Robert quit football.
Yeah. Because the coach
he went back his junior year.
Yeah.
And the Vikings drafted him number 1, which people laughed at. Literally, when they announced Robert Smith, people were laughing.
In his rookie year, I think he wore 20.
Or 26. Okay. If you have the football card for minicamp, he wore 44. During the season, he wore 20. And then the next year, he wore 26 because Audrey McMillan had 26 and Audrey was gone. So he took 26.
Yeah.
But yeah, he went from wearing Chuck Foreman's number to Tommy Mason's number to Clint Jones's number. Darren Nelson wore 20 also. But yeah.
who am I thinking of who wore 20 for us? The running back. The
Oh,
guy that the guy that caught the pass from Moss behind the
Mo
back.
Williams.
Mo Williams, yes.
And he started out wearing 21.
And Moss, the two best. Moss started his. I'm sure you may not know this, but Moss wore 18.
He wore 18 all the preseason.
Yeah.
When regular season rolled around, 84 was worn by Tony Bland. Tony Bland was waived like the day before the season opener or 2 days before, and Randy took over 40.
Because he couldn't wear 88.
No, 88 was retired.
So he
was retired.
88's his number.
Yeah.
So but he couldn't wear 88 because it was retired. So he went to 84.
Yep, 88 is retired, as well as it should.
So at 22 should be retired once Smith hangs it up.
It should have been retired for Paul Krause. Matter of fact, Paul Krause said he was going to be retired, and when David Palmer was done with it, and Red McCombs didn't keep his word. He didn't keep his word with Krause. He didn't keep his word with Carl Eller. They were going to retire both of those numbers.
And I know Red McCombs was like a backup plan owner. He wasn't supposed to be younger. It was supposed to be Tom Clancy.
Yeah. Well, McCombs was too busy trying to move this team out of.
Yeah, he started to move to San Antonio.
Yeah, he was trying to move him to San Antonio. That was the only reason he.
But Jerry would never allow that to happen.
Mm-mm. He should have knew that.
Well, Red McCombs kind of is like San Antonio. Like he's got like 6 different dealerships.
Well, he owned. Okay, yeah. This is where, because the Vikings radio rights were on K-Fan at one time, when K-Fan first started up here in the Twin Cities, but K-Fan was so negative to the Vikings that they moved their rights over to an AM station. When Red McCombs bought the team, since he owned Clear Channel.
I think it was Clear Channel. Yep.
All right. K-Fan was part of Clear Channel. Guess where he moved the Vikings right back to? Moved them right back to K-Fan. Been there ever since. Matter of fact, it was Red McCombs that hired Paul Allen, the radio guy.
Who was the radio guy before Paul Allen?
Dan Rowe.
Okay.
Dan Rowe and Stu Voigt before Dan was on K-Fan too. Bob Swede, Charlie Sanders' number, the former Detroit Lions / University of Minnesota tight end, was 88. He wore 40 at the University of Minnesota. Yeah, he wore 88 in Detroit. But before what was his name? Dan Rowe, it was Brad Nessler.
Guy from ESPN?
Yeah, Brad Nessler.
Oh, wow.
Before Brad Nessler, it was Joe McConnell. Joe McConnell's my favorite. That's the guy I grew up with. And he came back in the 80s.
And I remember, wasn't there, when Paul Allen became the play-by-play guy, wasn't there like an uncomfortable moment between him and like the color commentary guy?
There's been a couple of them. Him and Joe Sensor was one of them. Because Joe called the team out on numerous occasions and Paul Allen wouldn't do it. And
they just kind of a Pollyanna vibe with Paul Allen.
No, Bob, I didn't look it up. I did not look it up. Charlie Sanders was one of my favorite players growing up. Plus, he was a University of Minnesota guy.
Oh, yeah, Bob, he doesn't look anything up.
No.
I'm the one who does that just to verify to see if he's correct, and 9 times out of 10, he's correct. So,
Yeah.
He corrects me sometimes Wikipedia is wrong sometimes, too.
Here's the thing. For people that are looking for, like, football history, I'm lucky because I've got a bunch of books. I got a bunch of rosters and stuff like that, especially Viking stuff too. Wikipedia is the worst. Pro Football Reference, it's there. It's not up to date. They have to update some of the stuff, but they're probably the most accurate as far as football history. But avoid Wikipedia. Wikipedia is bad. But for me, luckily, knock on wood, I can still remember a lot of stuff. So my memory is still good. Used to drive my ex-wife up a wall though, because I've got that.
This is a great book.
I got it.
It's by
You-
Ahmad Patterson.
Used to drive my ex-wife up a wall. Used to piss her off. She used to throw it back in my face. You know, you can't remember what you did last night, but you can remember a friggin' Viking game from the 1973 season. And I'm like, of course, I know what I did last night. I'm just not telling you.
Yeah.
Bob Sensor's wife got in trouble. Joe Sensor's wife is the one that got in trouble. I think she had a hit and run, and she was drunk. It was a DWI, and she got into a hit and run and killed a guy. Joe Sensor had a stroke. I actually had talked to him before he had the stroke, but during that time he had a bad stroke. He had to learn to walk again and do other things again. But yeah, but it was his wife. She was the one.
So I don't know if you can see it or not.
Yeah, the Dutchman in 36 Stiffs.
That is the first chapter of the book.
Yep.
It's the birth of the Vikings, which we already covered in our first episode.
Yeah.
I bought this book a while ago. I don't know if you can still get it, but they're like, here's some pictures.
Oh, it's still out. It's still out there.
So
yeah, it's still out there. You can find it online too. You can find it
Yeah.
on eBay and
so there's the Met. So so this is how I learned some of my history that I wasn't around for. You know what they say? If you want to learn something, read a book.
yeah, read a book.
So
and I was kind of a geeky kid too. When I would skip school, I would actually go to the library and read old newspapers. They had them on microfilm then, so you could kind of fast forward through and
it
read
always
the
amazed me
newspapers.
where you would see somebody who was at the library and they would fast forward it and they knew exactly where to stop. I'm like, how the hell do you do that?
Yep. That's how I did, and that's kind of how I know so much, because as a kid growing up, my reading skills weren't the best start, when I was a young kid. My dad actually would read the sports pages to me. And then every day I would always get the sports page. That's how I knew so much about what was going on
And
in the NFL.
for me, not being in Minnesota, the thing that really helped me keep up to date with Minnesota was Bob Lertzman's Viking Update.
And that was the best thing to have.
Yeah.
For a Viking fan, that was the best thing to have, because that gave you all the Viking insight. And it was weekly. And Bob bought that it was Carl Kasulki's. He did it. He started it in 1974. When Bob retired, he bought it from him. And but that was the best way to keep up with the team. Tommy Kramer bought it later. And then Lertzman got it back.
Yeah. And then I think, was it Purple Insider now, that company? I think they were the ones who had it last.
Yeah.
Because it used to be like newspaper form. Like it was like newspaper weekly type of. And then towards the end, they switched to a magazine. And once they went to the magazine,
Bob said he got out of it just in time, because the printing press, print media was going downhill. It was all going online.
Yeah.
So he said he got out of it just in time.
Yeah, like the Viking Update YouTube channel doesn't even exist anymore.
No, it's gone.
Yeah.
It's gone.
But that's where Holler is at, right? Matthew Holler? Or is that his name? The guy that's
Holler is on Insider, yeah.
He was with Viking Update before he started Viking Insider, I think.
He was with the Vikings.
Yeah.
And then he got fired.
Caught before. Do you know what happened to Wabasha?
Mike Wabasha?
Yeah.
Yeah, He said some things online that were political and very controversial, and that cost him the job he had with the Vikings.
See, because we were talking. We had a group of us who were talking, and we're sitting there talking to ourselves. We're like, that can't be the reason he got fired, because what he said was controversial to one side but not the other. I said that can't be the reason why he got
No,
fired.
that's the reason.
That's pretty
Okay, I'm
weak
just
by-
gonna put it out there.
That's pretty weak by the Vikings.
But here, I'm gonna put it out there. Matthew if you followed his Twitter handle at all, did you follow his Twitter handle?
Bob Shaw, yeah.
He's pretty much MAGA.
I know,
So-
but still, in my opinion, unless you say something racist, which he didn't,
Well, it depends on who you're saying it to.
you know.
I mean, it's all one's interpretation too. I mean, he said some shit. I'm kind of like, really, dude? You put that out there, and I'm black.
I didn't follow everything he said, but
He said a lot of things
they
that
showed the tweet that they said actually got him fired, and that wasn't that bad. So
they used that one. There were ones before then.
yeah,
There were ones before then, and there were ones that he
Well-
said on other people's sites.
that's why my professional, that I use for my work, is not tied to any of my social medias.
Well, this is why I'll never get a press pass from the Vikings. I
Yeah.
don't kiss their ass.
I just think people are way too sensitive nowadays. Being offensive is, if you're a comedian, is fine, but being offensive.
And you know what? And I'm at that age where I don't
But
give a damn.
My
if
mom says the same thing. My mom's like, I don't fucking care. I'm 70.
I don't care. Yeah, Freddie, it's going to happen. Unfortunately,
Right now, the rumor is that there's a number that the Vikings are not willing to go above. What people who know have said, it's probably be 35 a year for 3 years, 2 of those years guaranteed.
is anybody saying if it's guaranteed?
But he's not going to sign if it's not at least 2 years guaranteed, is what they're saying.
He doesn't need any more guaranteed money.
So
He doesn't need another dime of guaranteed money. I'd tell him to kick rocks.
but I don't know. I'm hoping it's less than that. I'm hoping it's like around 30. But he doesn't want to get paid $10 million less than Daniel Jones. Because Daniel Jones is, what, 40 a year, I think?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the rumor right now, Freddie.
Yeah. That's it. As you can tell, I'm happy.
Because they want 2 years. The word is from Cousins' camp is that it's not the money, it's the verbiage of the contract. So which pretty much means he wants
guaranteed money.
guaranteed money.
Thank you. Here's the first thing. First of all, I want to know how he's doing in rehab, because I'll tell you what, he's probably not going to play it down in preseason. Matter of fact, he'll probably start the season on the PUP list. Him and Hawkinson both.
Well, Hawkinson's going to be out longer than him, but yeah.
Yeah, they're both going to be on the PUP list. And we don't know how well Kirk's healing. I mean,
Well, they said he was walking without assistance when he went to the game.
when I tore my Achilles, I did the same thing.
So
I tore my Achilles, I did the same thing. Guess what? I was still apprehensive about putting weight on it and moving like I used to.
and that's his
Plant foot.
push off leg. Yeah.
This is push off leg. So and then if you're the Vikings, you bring him back. Are you gonna fix that sieve of an offensive line that you have?
Well, the word is mutual love with Reisner coming back and then re-signing Reisner.
You know what though? They say a lot of things. They got to prove it to me. Just like last year, O'Connell said he was going to run the ball more.
Well, he did. Instead of running it 9 times, ran it 11. I mean, technically, that's more. The last game, I think they ran the ball 11 times. Which is why I think the Rams are going to beat the Lions, because Nick Mullins burnt that secondary.
Rams just got a better all around team,
Yeah.
better coach and everything. So
I'll tell you what, though, if I'm looking for an agent and I'm a player, I'm going after Kirk's agent.
oh, by the way, Freddie, thanks for saying pizza. Yogi still owes me a pizza.
Pizza.
Yeah. I don't care at this point. I'll take any pizza.
Every time you see him, first time you think pizza.
I'm just gonna walk up to him and say pizza.
Just keep doing it until he gets it to you. Pizza.
Yeah.
So Tony, what do you think? Pizza. He says he hasn't given you yet because technically the season's not over.
Oh, is he really going that route?
He's like they could sign him to a future.
Oh, for God's sake. Oh, God. Oh my God. Oh.
Stop being cheap, Yogi. Get the man his pizza.
Yeah, thank you. Give me my pizza.
I don't want much in life. I just want my damn pizza.
I just want a large thin crust sausage, pepperoni, black olives, Canadian bacon.
Yeah. I wanted to be Chandler, but he doesn't run the ball, so it doesn't really matter who the number one is. Unless
Did they re-sign Gaskin?
No, but someone that just is not going to play for the Titans next year.
Derrick Henry?
Yeah.
He's got a lot of tread on them tires.
He's better than anything we have.
I know, but he's still got a lot of tread on them tires.
We talk about a soft team. He would definitely not make this team be soft.
He'd have to make his own holes because the offensive line won't do it for him.
Oh, no, there's plenty of holes. Did you see the meme with Alexander Madison?
Oh,
God. He's running. There's like a big hole, and there's like a group of guys. And it shows him running through the group of guys instead of going through the hole. I'm sorry, but as a running back, you got to have vision.
And Madison doesn't have it.
Yeah.
Freddie, to be honest, we signed Kirk to that money. You can kiss Daniil goodbye, which I think you're going to kiss Daniil goodbye anyway because
because Kirk's market value, quote unquote, Kirk's market value, if he takes 35, it would be a pay cut because his market value is like 42, 43.
That's a healthy Kirk.
Right.
He's not healthy.
So 35 would be a discount.
But he's not healthy. He's coming off a major injury.
So
he's 36. There is no upside.
You're not going to get much out of him.
That's why I like talking about the past, because if I talk about the current team, I'll lose it.
Okay, I want to bring this up too. I saw this earlier, and I see a lot of people saying this.
It's gaining.
So we had Jake Reed, we had Carter, and then we had Moss. Okay, after those three guys left, we had one good receiver, Sidney Rice. Okay, all the other receivers on the team were shit. After Sidney Rice left, we went through absolutely more shit. When we're talking the Greg Jennings,
Did you forget about Percy Harvin?
Because Sidney Rice left. Sidney Rice was on was Percy
After
Harvin.
We still had Percy.
But he's not he was more of an all-around player. He wasn't necessarily just a wide receiver. I'm talking like just pure wide receivers.
Yeah. He was an offensive weapon, put it that way.
Yeah, he was an offensive weapon. For pure wide receivers, after Sidney Rice left, this team had shit for wide receivers. For a good 8 years until they got Diggs in 2015.
And Diggs didn't start out like he
Right,
was
and
going
Diggs,
to be
yeah.
a receiver.
And then they got Diggs, and they found Thielen because if the Vikings weren't in Minnesota, let's say Thielen grew up somewhere in Philadelphia, and he went to the Eagles tryout, he would have been an Eagle. The Vikings got lucky with Thielen just because he happened to be a Minnesota kid.
Yeah.
And then we got JJ. We've been spoiled with our wide receivers. So, and the reason I say don't trade JJ is because I don't think you're going to get back what he's worth. He's the best receiver in the NFL. That's at least 3 first-round picks and at least 2 seconds.
Yeah, but we are in draft hell.
But when you get,
he's gonna. Okay, are you gonna pay him?
I'd rather pay him than Kirk.
That's not. You know what though? Okay?
Because who's a rookie receiver going to throw to?
You throw to Addison.
I don't think Addison's a 1.
Addison's a 1. He's a 1. Addison's a 1.
I haven't seen it. Yeah, but best player available. Troy Williamson was BPA.
Well, and here's the thing.
Macklin was BPA.
The problem with the Vikings is they have so many holes all across the board, but they're still focusing on a position that they're going to have to upgrade eventually, and that's quarterback.
Right, and I understand they have holes, but you can't have a hole everywhere.
This team has got them.
People are talking. Well, no, I'm saying people are talking about trading JJ, trading O'Neal, and trading Darrisaw. What are you left with?
Okay, you already paid O'Neal. You're going to have to pay JJ, and you're going to have to pay Darrisaw. And they're going to
act like these positions grow on trees, though.
Actually, you know what? They kind of do.
Well, right tackles are not as good as O'Neal, but left tackles don't grow on trees.
No, but then if we draft
Penix, it doesn't matter, I guess.
But then here's the thing, too. If you look at what happened with Darrisaw, he looked human. He ended up 3rd best.
I think he was hurt, though. We'll find out. I hope he was hurt. Because
it also doesn't matter either, because guess what? The Vikings offensive line is poorly coached. Teams have film on them now. You know how to beat them. You do. You know how to beat them. And here's the thing: if you trade,
But see, I understand what you're saying, Bob. I totally get what you're saying. I don't think they're going to get what everybody wants them to get, and I don't think as many goals are going to get filled as people think.
We don't have. If we had a better front office, I would say yes.
Because, like I said, if I was JJ, I'm not trading unless you give me 3 firsts and at least a 1 second. And
if we get the number 1 pick, who you taking? Not Caleb.
Not Caleb. I don't want a quarterback that throws his teammates underneath the bus.
Not Caleb.
Guys are not going to play for a quarterback. I play defense, and my quarterback of my team, if that dude put a wall on fire and told me to run through it, I'm going to
be honest with you. I saw nothing in Drake May that jumps out at me. But
he's a better leader than Caleb Williams. Like he takes responsibility when he screws up, unlike Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams always tries to find an excuse why something didn't happen. It's never his fault.
I guess I could see that. But I seen him play the Gophers, and I wasn't impressed with him. He should have threw the Gophers out, and they kept hanging around.
Yeah. So it depends. We got to watch more film, obviously.
Right.
If the Vikings had number 1, if Vikings are serious about getting a quarterback for the future, it's probably going to be Drake May because he fits KOC's system. So if they don't re-sign Cousins, then we'll see.
What is KOC's system?
Sean McVay light.
That's not even in Sean McVay neighborhood.
Supposedly that's what it is. It's Sean McVay light. But his system is not as good because Sean McVay actually runs the football. And I think that goes back to Sean McVay never actually playing, just being a coach. KOC used to be a quarterback. So I think that's the difference.
Hey, Freddie, the thing with McCarthy is more of a System quarterback?
He's also 20 years old.
He's young. But he's more of a system quarterback. He's not going to cost you a game. Put it this way. The best place for McCarthy is with a team that is a predominantly run first team.
Yeah, he'd be a better version of Purdy.
Right.
Yeah, Penix had no help in that game at all. His offensive line got destroyed.
I'm going to be honest. I wasn't impressed with Penix when I watched him in the regular season.
They dropped balls.
Yeah. I wasn't impressed with him in the regular season, and he can't take a hit.
So
he can't take
I was just pointing out he had no help in that game.
Yeah.
And then he goes, and then the post-game conference, he goes, our best was not good enough. My best was not good enough. Caleb Williams ain't saying
I'm just going to put this out there. If he thought the Michigan defense was beating his ass, wait till he gets to the NFL.
Oh, especially if he goes to a team like the Washington.
Yeah, just wait.
But I'm saying Caleb Williams wouldn't have said, I should have played better. We should have played better. Caleb Williams would have been like, man,
it's everybody else's fault.
We had our shots, but they didn't get it. They didn't.
It's everybody else's fault.
Yeah, they didn't perform when they had their chance. You know, he wouldn't say I didn't perform. No.
Well, hey, can we wrap this up?
Yeah. So, any ideas?
I just want to say thank you to everybody in the chats. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for the support. Thank you for putting up with us for 2.5 hours. Thanks.
Yeah. I kind of had like a thing I had to take care of. That's why. But
thank you for listening to me ramble. I give thanks to you guys because if you guys didn't ask for this, I wouldn't be doing it. So once again, keep the questions coming in, keep the support up, and
we are the only Viking weekly history show.
Yep.
You know, like this book I showed, you get a chapter of one time of the inaugural team. So everything is like other YouTube histories. It's like a 3 or 4 hour where they shove everything into the 3-hour episode. We talk for 2.5 hours, 3 hours, sometimes over 3 hours on a certain topic.
Which, when we start out with history, it does lead into the present because a lot of what we talk about, you kind of like, well, then, okay, you've seen what they did then. Why can't they do that now? And we give you the scenarios, the reasons, and stuff like that. There's a backstory to everything. So,
which is why Tony and I go on record.
Right.
7-10 is not good enough.
Yeah. And especially for us that saw the good years, the great years. Yeah, he did. He did break a record this year for tight end receptions, I believe.
He would have been the first tight end to have over 100 receptions if he didn't get hurt. He would have been the most prolific tight end in a single season ever if he did not get hurt.
He broke I
That's
think
what he was on track for.
Team-wise, he broke Joe Sensor's record.
Right. Well, no, I'm talking National Football League record. He would have.
Yeah, he would have broke.
Because he had 95 catches when he got hurt.
Okay. Yeah. So, but yeah, thanks again, everybody, for the support.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys. Can't tell you, Bob, Freddie, you guys show up every week. Vikings fan 1, 2, 3. You joined us a couple months ago. You hear all the time. Of course, T-Bass.
Bob, Freddie, T-Bass.
Yeah. King 40, we saw you. Darian, he's another content creator. He shows up. So we appreciate everybody.
Where is Sarah?
I don't know. Maybe she's taking
She's bored with us already?
There's a lot of shows on Wednesdays.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it starts at 5 and goes until we get off. So that's a lot. So, but yeah. But like I said, we want to appreciate everybody coming here. If you guys have I checked your comments. So if you guys have an idea for a show, let us know. We are going to do the 98 season. We just have not decided when we are going to do that. We understand that's going to probably be a pretty big episode. So we may wait until like the dead time for that show to get people in here. Because right now there's still a lot going on with the Vikings. There's people still, but probably sometime in between when the off season is like after the combine and before the draft, maybe
that
dead season. That dead part is probably when we're going to do it because that's a lot of people are going to come to that show and we'll put it out there. We'll keep mentioning it when we have a definite time. We'll keep mentioning it the weeks before, and I'll mention all the other YouTube channels and stuff that we go to. But like I said, if you have any ideas for next week's show, we can do playoff games. We can do we can't do disappointing Vikings playoff losses because that'd be a 2-week show.
That'd be a month show.
But so if you guys have any ideas, just go ahead and drop them in the comments. You can hit me up on Facebook at Catch84. Tony has a couple of Facebook groups. Tony, if you need
I've got my personal one, which is Anthony Tony Bell. These are my groups. They're usually 24/7, 365. I have Minnesota Vikings 24/7, 365 as a group. I have NFL and pro football 24/7, 365 as a group. I also have classic NFL and pro football 24/7, 365. That's all classic NFL stuff like stats, pictures, stories, stuff like that, videos. The NFL has the current, and the Minnesota Viking has past, present, future news about the Minnesota Vikings, pictures, videos, interviews, stuff like that.
So those where we can find us on the socials. My YouTube channel is in the.
And I'll put this one out there too.
Yeah.
I have a group called Hard Rock Heavy Metal 24/7, 365. That's also my group. So, and that talks about metal, past, present, future, and hard rock. So for those of you,
I was listening to my vinyl Megadeth, the Sick, Dying, and the Sick, Dying, and Dead today when I was cleaning house.
I listened to some Exodus.
So hey, can't beat some Exodus.
I did listen to Exodus. I listened to Exodus today. I listened to Slayer yesterday.
I got my Overkill coming in the mail.
Oh, no, which one?
The Black and Green one. I can never remember the name of it. The Black album, written in green.
Yeah.
Neon green. I can never remember the name of the album.
Oh, Under the Influence.
Yes, that's it. Yeah. So I have that one coming.
That one, I love that album.
Yeah.
I played the hell out of that album. But yeah, so that's another one of my groups too on Facebook.
Yeah.
So.
Amon Amarth is a good one too.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you like the lead singer of Amon Amarth he was in the show Vikings Quest, and he's also the #1 Viking history storyteller, and he knows Vikings history. So he's actually a good. He loves the Minnesota Vikings as well, obviously. He loves Vikings history. So they have a song called "The Vikings versus Texans." It's an awesome song. So if you guys like that history type of stuff,
I like Amon Amarth. I do like them.
Yeah. Well, Tony, pleasure once again.
Oh, I enjoyed this, Catch. Thanks for having me on, dude.
Yeah.